permit me to also introduce you to banners, as I've said. These you can expect to see on television as we release our new television ads starting tomorrow. So you can expect to see our ads that talk about our customer win-back initiatives and efforts as we go forward for the remainder of the year. And we are encouraging all Bahamians, all of our citizens and residents, to make sure, even if you're new or you're returning to the Water and Sewage Corporation, you can expect to receive 50% off for if you return, okay? Whether for the first time or whether you're returning, you were with us, you were once a customer, and you left us some 10, 20, 30 years ago. We would like for you now to be introduced to the new Water and Sewage Corporation. We would like for you to try us again, all right? We're not what you thought we are, or you used to know us to be, okay? Or what you thought we were like back then, 10, 20 years ago. So we would like to encourage you to sign up again and connect to us and try and at least experience a new service, a new Water and Sewage Corporation, okay? 50% off, guys. You know, where can you beat that, right? All right. This is unprecedented for us, this 50% off, and so we're encouraging our customers and residents alike to please take advantage of that.
Yeah, I do have a statement and a question. When all the pipes were redone in Blair, quite a while ago, I made a suggestion to a permanent secretary that since they were there already, and you had all your workers there, why didn't they go to every house that wasn't hooked up to water and sewage, and we all know why we aren't hooked up to water and sewage, and give them a discount to hook up? And they would have got a whole bunch of business. Nothing happened. And I'm making a suggestion to you. If you were to go into neighborhoods like Blair, where I happen to live, and you know every house that isn't hooked up, and say, look, if we can get, maybe 100 of you to sign up, we'll do it at half price or whatever. You might get a whole bunch of people to sign up, but at $800 a throw, you're saying, come back to us, and I'm saying, I'm going to spend $800 to hook up. I'm already okay with my water, and I've had to test it. Yes, I have had to test it. So it's a suggestion I'm making to you that in place of, if you're going to have your men go in and do one house, why don't they go in and do 100, whatever the number is, at a discount, and you'll get yourself a whole bunch of customers.
Yeah.
Excellent idea. Just kidding. Actually, funny enough, we have done that in some areas. But the reality was that in the past, even when we made the offer, we couldn't guarantee service. It is only over the past 2 years that we have done some things where we can guarantee service. Because losing a customer once is one thing. You could possibly get them back on. You lose them twice, that's it, they're gone forever. But I do agree with you 100%. And one of the things we're trying to do with the win back is this is an island-wide campaign right now. And then as we continue to make improvements in certain areas, then we're going to do area-wide campaigns. And as we change water mains, we'll do specific street-by-street campaigns. But I do agree with you. And now is the time that we can actually go into Blair and say, look, we got a reliable, good, potable water supply. Interruptions are, minimal. We have standby power generation. We have more than sufficient production. We don't have water rationing. We haven't had any rationing of water since, I think, sometime around mid or near to the end of 2013. And in fact, now we have an abundance of water, and that's why we actually need and can provide customers with the service level they deserve. But I agree.
Question for you. Regarding the automated meter reading, is there going to be a cost to your customers to put those new meters in that you propose to put in?
No.
You mentioned about using BCCEC also using those meters to do meter readings. Are they going to be ready when you're ready to put these meters in reading meters for electricity as well?
Yeah. In answer to your first question, no, there will be no additional cost. Basically, what we're doing is we're changing the style of meter that we're using. It's more accurate, it's more reliable, and so that's something we're doing internally. In terms of the automated meter reading, the fixed network that we're putting in is already compatible with the meters that BEC now has. We ran a pilot test 2014, 2013, and we were able to pick up the BEC meters already. Now, one of the things that they have expressed is that they want to move to the next generation meter, and we're making sure that whatever network we put up will also be compatible or able to be upgraded in order to accommodate their new meters. So the answer is right now, if we put up that fixed network today, BEC can read all of their meters without having to send anybody out.
Another question regarding the customer win-back program. What happens to those customers who have been gone from water and sewage for a while, but they left the bill with you, and you invite them to come back to the corporation, you're offering this 50% discount on the first day of service? What happens to that arrears that they would left with the corporation? Are you going to carry that? Are you going to write it off as them coming back to the customers? How are you treating those people?
Yeah, those will be negotiated on a case-by-case basis. There are some people who went off quite a while ago, and a lot of the charges that they accumulated were what we call minimum charges. In other words, it was a charge just to keep a meter on your property, but they did not consume any water. So a customer like that would be treated differently from, let's say, somebody who used a large quantity of water and just didn't pay their bill. So those things have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. There won't be a one-size-fits-all for that.
My final question regarding, again, Mr. Drew, water quality. You've seen in the past where it's through well water or use of water sewage supply, but there was over time buildup of like calcium and stuff in the water, ruining your fixtures, etc. Is that the case now, or is this still matter being addressed, or are we still expecting over a period of time to still see some corrosion to appliances based on some chemical buildup?
Yeah.
It came mostly from well water supplies, but should we expect the same thing from the city water systems?
Yeah, so the majority of that comes from the use of hard water or groundwater, and our water is hard because it's a limestone geology. What we are doing now is desalinated water. Within New Providence, we're just about 94, 95% desalinated water. So basically the same water that you buy in bottled water. That water is very soft, so you don't have any of that calcium buildup. So simple answer is no, you won't get that kind of buildup with the water supply now.
Sorry, but that's the last question. This is the last one. Yeah, this is the last one. Yeah, so we talked, Mrs. Ashley and I live in the east, probably different sides of the east, but we're in the east nonetheless. But over a period of time, we've experienced these issues with, low water supply during certain periods of the day, over a 24-hour period. We know there's been some increase in improvement in the water supply. Is there a peak period or a lull period when we should be expecting there to be a full throttle or get a full supply of water coming out? Are there other periods we should expect that you're not going to get as much water supply, as in other parts of the day? What should our expectations be as to when we should best be able to use water to get a full water supply?
So let me divide that into 3 periods. So prior to the water loss reduction program we did, the reality was we could not supply water 24/7. So you would have had all sorts of water rationing, manual cutbacks of the water supply, and you would experience low pressure. Not to mention a lot of pipes with a lot of leakage, and the more leakage you have in the pipe, the less pressure that gets to the customer. So that was one period. Now we're in the water loss reduction period where part of the solution to the water loss reduction is pressure control. Now, what we've been doing is that we've been lowering pressures at different times prior to making improvements on the assets. Once the assets are improved, infrastructure is changed, then we raise that pressure back. So right now, you're sort of in a mid-period. So off-peak periods are generally between 10 o'clock in the night, 5 o'clock in the morning. So we have been lowering pressures during those times, but what we are doing now, because of all the progress we've made, is that we're now raising pressures throughout the day. One of the parts of the contract that we have for water loss reduction is that we want a certain average pressure throughout the entire system. So not only does the contractor have to address the infrastructure improvements and the reduction of water loss, but he also has to raise the level of service to all of our customers. So we're getting to that period now where a lot of the infrastructure improvements have been made, and so you're going to see consistent pressures throughout the day. So there won't be any reductions in the nighttime in a lot of areas.
So it'll be the same consistency throughout
Yeah,
24
yeah,
period?
and that is going to take time, and that's why I say even when we look at our win-back program, we're going to look at specific areas, and as we make the improvements to the level where we can increase pressures throughout the period of time, throughout 24 hours, then we will do that, and we will keep moving from area to area. But generally speaking, right now, the majority of areas in New Providence, they're very small cutbacks, if any, in the nighttime.
Yes, sir. As it relates to wastewater treatment on the island of New Providence, the deep well injection scenario as it relates to untreated waste, what's the plan moving forward for that at the different sites around the island, water and sewage corp sites around the island? That's the first one, because as it relates to contamination. Number two, is there an overall plan for groundwater remediation on the island as a result of the contamination? And number three, as it relates to industries, for instance, desalination, what do we do with the discharge water? How is it that we can recycle these things so that we can help with our aquifers, the water aquifers, so that we can recharge them? And finally, based on the numbers as it relates to for the year 2030, it is expected that the water demand is going to increase significantly, therefore creating a scarcity for water in the world. How do we intend to deal with that in the Bahamas today, now that it's 2015?
Okay, it was good with you up to 3, but I'll try to remember. So first of all, in terms of sewage discharge, part of the master plan is to divide the island into 3 separate areas. We're going to be consolidating all of the wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal. So that issue about untreated waste going down disposal wells, we expect to address part of that under this particular program. And in addition to that, we have a master plan to address it throughout the island. The second part, dealing with discharge, particularly from the desalination plants, those are all deep well disposal also. The type of aquifer that we have in the Bahamas does not necessarily lend itself to recharge in terms of man-made recharge. Recharge is generally through rainfall and also through balancing what is going into the aquifer with what is coming out from the aquifer. But the aquifer is constantly leaking out into the shoreline, because what we have is a freshwater lens that just floats on salt water. You pull too much up at that point and you get the seawater going in, but it's constantly leaching out. So it has a lot of factors that play into it. The funny thing about our geology also is that you can be right over there and you can have the freshest water in the world. I can be right here and I can have the saltiest water in the world. So it doesn't lend itself to that. What was number 3? Industrial discharge. Now, in terms of industrial discharge, we don't really have that much industrial discharge in the Bahamas. And to give you an example, I would perhaps put, aside from special and small businesses, I'd probably put BEC as the highest in terms of industrial discharge. And the only reason I put them in that category is that they use a large amount of seawater for cooling and then they discharge it back into the environment. Again, because of the geology that we have massive amounts and volumes of water that pass into and out of the islands every day. So the volumes that they put in do not have any significant impact. Any industries have to do on-site treatment prior to discharging into our system, if we have a system present, or to our satisfaction. And so those things are dealt with under those circumstances. Now, one thing I would also say is that under the wastewater master plan, it is a massive bill. It is about $630 million in order to sewer just this island. So if you take into account we only have about 200 to 300,000 people, that is not a very small bill to put on the country. So we have to look at innovative ways, and the other thing that we have to do is over periods of time as new developments come online, we just need to make sure that everything they do is in accordance with the master plan that we have for the island. But what we plan to do under this project is all of the critical works at pumping stations, wastewater treatment plants, so that we could just halt some of the environmental damage that could be done. Did I catch all of them? Okay. Right.
Where the water demand will increase by so much.
Right.
Population is going to move from 7 billion to 9 billion globally, estimated. The increase is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40% more. We do not recycle water globally. The trend is that we've been using this water historically forever, and it's not being replaced. So by this particular time, what are we going to do with water, potable water in the Bahamas?
Yeah, so what it comes down to, a lot of it comes down to water efficiency, because that's what we all talking about. And there are three sides to water efficiency. There's the demand side management, where we come to the customer and we say, look, you need to conserve water, you need to watch what volumes you utilize, and you need to use it efficiently. There's the supply side management, which is what we are dealing with right now, which is the water losses in the ground. And that's why one of the points I was making is that with the program that we put in place, we've already saved 3 million gallons per day. So that means now we don't have to increase the capacity of any of our systems for some time to come. And that's without having to build any new facilities. That is just saving the water that we were losing. And then on the other side, there's disposal side management. So now you get into wastewater, treating it, and then reusing it either for irrigation or for some other use. Now, within our wastewater master plan, we contemplate the use of recycled wastewater for irrigation, particularly for resorts on the golf courses and so. At one point, Atlantis used to use some of their treated wastewater to flush their toilets. They had some challenges with it, so they don't do it anymore. But that reuse of wastewater, treated wastewater, is yet another source of water that addresses some of your problems. One of the other issues also is that with desalination basically gives you an almost unlimited supply of water. I'm not saying that the sea is unlimited, but it's about as close as you can get. So what we have to ensure that we do is that when we do desalinate water, we use it efficiently, and if there are any reuse possibilities, that we take those into account. Of course, with that unlimited supply and that method comes a very high bill, because energy is the highest part of desalination. So one of the things we're doing, and we hope to have a pilot program going in Eleuthera, hopefully next year. It's taken a very long time, but we trying to incorporate renewable energy with our desalination plants. So we actually had a PPA agreement with a company. That fell through, so we now have another company. In fact, they're going to be in town tomorrow and for the weekend to go to the naval base site in Governor's Harbor, Eleuthera, because we're in the final parts or stages of finalizing a power purchase agreement for them to put a wind turbine there to run the desalination plant. If that is successful, then we're going to introduce renewable energy at all of our desal plants. We're also in the process of getting a loan with the Caribbean Development Bank, and one of the things we're talking about with them is that with all of the desal plants, the introduction of renewable energy. So that's something we're looking at very seriously, so that we can start bringing down some of the cost of water. It may not necessarily lower it significantly, but at least it'll stabilize it where we're not burning fossil fuels. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and we're in the negotiation stage, and that is very Family Islands focused. This one was very Nassau or New Providence focused, because that is where our major revenue and our major customers are. So.
What is that going to do to your cash management and cash flow and ability to repay that over? I mean, because that's two very heavy loans, I imagine, and the corporation has to manage.
Yeah. And realistically, the development banks give you excellent terms on the loans that you do get. But it does mean that at some point, when we have made ourselves as efficient as possible in terms of water loss, staff productivity, that we do have to look at our tariffs. And that's unavoidable. No matter what we do, it's either going to be tariffs or government subsidies. particularly in the Family Islands. The reality is that we have areas that are economically challenged, and there's going to have to be some level of subsidy going forward, but we want it to be more targeted. And we want to be able to say that we have achieved a certain level of efficiency and therefore we're deserving of these tariff adjustments. Okay, thank you very much. You're going to close out.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaVille. I do want to thank you all again for those who were able to attend today and those who stayed until this point to listen to the presentations. I want to give the Water and Sewage Corporation the assurance of the Chamber of Commerce that in its efforts to provide better potable drinking water and looking at water security and supply, et cetera, going forward, that we certainly are going to be there to support you in those initiatives. And we'll be also very glad to help promote the Win Back campaign that you've initiated, and we'll do whatever we can to ensure that the word gets out to our membership at large, that they can get up to 50% off in the first year when they return. I'm sure we'll have some people who'll be interested in something like that. So once again, I want to thank you all for coming out today. I want to thank Sarah Kirby, her team from Barefoot Marketing, yes. And also, I want to thank our staff, Mishana Etchcom, who's worked closely with her and the team from Water and Sewage to help make this day possible. Hopefully we can do this again, Mr. LaVille, and next time we hope that we can get the room more filled with people who are in town to come. And I apologize for many of our directors, many of whom were texting me during the course of the luncheon that they're out of the country and weren't able to come out today. But next time we hope to get more people here to fill the room. But we're glad that at least the media came, and thank you, ZNS, for staying until the end, and to the Tribune. Thank you so much. All right, if there aren't any other questions, I want to thank you all again. We also want to thank, again, Water and Sewage for generously sponsoring this luncheon today. And so thank you all very much, and look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Have a good afternoon.